Hi, and welcome to the next series of Leadership in Real Life. Today I have with me Inbasekeran, Inba, a senior HR executive. He is a director of HR in the Expat Group. This is a group which is a multinational and is located out of Bangalore. Inba is a 35 plus years HR veteran who's worked with various companies. He's worked in companies as well as consulted with them. Today, we are going to discuss the concept of meaning making. What is it that binds a follower to a leader? Why does somebody follow a leader? Is it because the leader exercises authority? Or is it because she or he creates an environment where the follower wants to be a part of that leader's team? Inba, thank you very much for working with me in this series of leadership in real life.
Thank you, Ravi. I'd like to start responding to your statement that you made. Well, there are many reasons by which a follower follows a leader. There could be reasons of authority, where the organization has given the person an authority. I would call that more political, because I want to be politically right to be following the leader. Or the person will be a master in a subject and therefore I want to learn from him. That could also be one of the reasons. But what I'd like to come from the angle of meaning making is, what makes a follower and a leader a good match, right? A real complement. I would say that if you're my leader, and if it makes sense for me, if it gives meaning to me to follow you, that would be a great match. Now, supposing both of us are taking a walk in the afternoon down MG Road, and both of us are hungry, and we say, why don't we go to a restaurant? And as we walk in, there are two restaurants. One is a restaurant which is vegetarian, one is a restaurant which is non-vegetarian. And you being a vegetarian, you say that let's go to the vegetarian hotel. Now what I would say is, your value is for vegetarianism, and therefore it gives you better meaning to get into a vegetarian hotel. So the value gives you the meaning to make the choice, right? So the same way for the leader also. Now, what is it that makes me or drives me to follow this leader? So if the leader has that right personality, which gives the meaning to the follower, that the follower chooses by choice to follow him. Right? And I would say that should be the right match that the leader should create in the follower. In all such cases, when I were to examine the leader has been with a very different personality, right? I see a lot of humility in the person. I see the person is more congruent within, right? It's not that he says one and does one. The other thing is, there's something called role and personhood. Do I come out from my role as a leader and an authority, or do I come out as a person to a person? Role should be limited only where it is required. Otherwise, it is person to person. Such leaders whom I've seen, they come more from the personhood rather from the role. As a result, what happens is the role distance collapses. The person-to-person relationship becomes rich, right? But it doesn't mean that the follower takes advantage of that. No, that respect is still maintained. And the humility of the leader also creates a large space for the follower. There's one Tao saying which says, why is the sea the greatest? Because it lies below all the rivers, right? So that sort of humility provides a space, to be what you are, right? A non-judgmental space that the leader creates. Okay, now what is the advantage? Now, when there is such a leader, now what happens is the follower's commitment is high. So the tasks given by the leader, the commitment of the follower is much higher than in a normal sense. When the commitment is higher, the productivity is higher. And all this because the work becomes much more meaningful to me, because to follow that leader is very meaningful to me. there's a lot of learning from the guru system that you can pick up over here, because I'd like to quote John Maxwell over here, where he says, the real leader is one who has a following without having authority. I'm reminded of a very nice parable, a Chinese parable which was published in the Harvard Business Review quite some time ago, I think somewhere in 1988 or so. Chao was a big Chinese emperor, and he was beloved of the people, right? They really, really endured him. He was a father figure, right? People just like to follow him for the just pure pleasure of following him. And here he was, 70 years old, sick in his bed. And people were very concerned. And this was voiced to the king, saying that people are very concerned because after you go, whether will it be the same level of relationship with the son? The son was somewhere in the late 20s. And this became a concern for the father. And the father called his son, whose name was Chai, and he said, Chai, I have fixed up something for you. Deep inside the forest, there is a sage by name Mung. I want you to go there and learn leadership. And Chai was a little nonplussed, saying that what can a sage right inside the forest can teach me about a country's administration? But anyway, father's saying, so he said, yes, sir. And then he took his horse, took the food that he required, packed up his bag, and then rode into the forest. Deep, deep inside the forest, near a mountain, there was this sage. He goes there, bows down, and he says, oh, great sage. And Mung says, yes, sonny, Dad told about you that you will be coming, and I've been waiting for you. All that I want you to do is just get into the forest and listen to all the sounds that you can listen to and come back and report to me. And, Chai, the young man who he was, he has visited the forest so many times, many a hunting, many a nights he has spent over there. He said, is that what he is asking? Don't I know the sounds of the forest? But just for the sake of Mung, he went into the forest, spent a night, came back with a long list, and he started reading to Mung and saying, Mung, these are the sounds of the forest. The chirping of the bird, the gurgling of the brook, the rustling of the leaves, the roaring of the lion, the howling of the wolves, and the list was going on and on. And with every statement that he made, Mung just kept looking down and kept shaking his head. The list was becoming shorter and shorter, and finally the list was exhausted, and still Mung said, no, sonny, you haven't heard the sounds of the forest. Get back and listen to the sound and come back. This time, he was very humbled. He just didn't know what to do. His shoulders drooped down. He just climbed his horse and trotted down into the forest. Not knowing which direction he was going, not knowing what to do, he went deep into the forest. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Still he hadn't heard the sound of the forest, what Mung was seeking for. It's the same sound again and again. And days went by, he became more and more humble. He said, what is it? What is it? And finally, he was in total exasperation. He said, I know nothing. I know nothing. And as he was laying there, confessing to himself that he knows nothing, and there he started hearing the sound of the forest. And he said, my God, is this the sound of the forest? It is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. He kept hearing it. He kept hearing it. And then, the cheer came back into him. He climbed the horse. He started slowly trotting down towards Mung. And Mung was sitting there, and as this young man was coming, Mung knew that he has heard the sound of the forest. And he walks down, bows before Mung, and Mung says, yes, sonny, tell me the sound. And he said, oh, great Mung, I could hear the beautiful sound of the bud blossoming into a flower. I could hear the beautiful sound of the green grass drinking in the early morning dew. And I could hear the beautiful sound of the early morning sun falling on the tender leaves. Mung shook his head and he said, yes, son, that's what it is. Countries fail, families fail, organizations fail when leaders hear what everybody hears, say what everybody says, see what everybody sees. Wisdom of leadership lies in to articulate the inarticulated, to hear the unheard, and to see the unseen. What I've seen is the level to which the leader has been able to work with his own self, right? To that level, he also finds authority, right? Because he's able to see through the followers. He's able to understand exactly what the followers want, right? And it by itself creates a charisma, right? Which really attracts the followers to listen to what he has to say. One of the things is how the leader is able to create a shared vision, a singular purpose where he brings the teammates who are directly reporting to him so that there is a single language based on which they speak, they agree upon, right? And which these leaders are able to cascade down the line. So definitely in terms of aligning the different thought processes, the different desires, different values, it has to come into one. So I would say two things that the leader has to ensure is, one is to ensure that there is a purpose, there's a singularity of purpose, plus also how do we work together, how do we norm ourselves, that also becomes very important. How do we relate so that each one doesn't take each other for granted, but there is a norming, there is a boundary in which the relationship operates. I would also say that it's not just a statement, but the right components that goes into it also. What the statement says is what we exist for, right? Who are the people whom we are going to serve, right? How we are going to do it. What is the output that is going to come out of the work that we are going to do, and what is the final outcome that is going to result out of this. So this all bundled together gives the collective meaning for the fellowship to take on. Right? It is the core of the person, the personality of the person. It is not a technique that they are working on. So if you're using a technique, tomorrow you'll change the technique. But here what you're using is you're coming from the inner being, right? The core, the congruent self, what you are and what you show yourself to be. They're congruent. And it is also something which the person works in himself or herself, constantly, being self-aware. What you stand for becomes very important. Do you stand for your value and your purpose, or you stand for the organization and its authority, right? So when you find that it crosses way with your personal values and what you stand for, I don't think that your loyalty should move on to the other side, because if you want to preserve that self, what you are, and stay congruent with, either you confront the organizational context and be able to, work through with your congruence, or I think you may have to part ways. It is not that the person who's got his values clear is less focused, because the person has by choice chosen to work in a given context. Now he's not going to achieve by himself, he's going to achieve along with his fellowship as such. Now when I'm saying that, if he has been able to create enough meaning in the fellowship, I would say that the commitment of that team is going to be much higher than any other ordinary team, right? The productivity of that team is going to be much higher. And the meaning making of that team to deliver what my boss wants is going to be much higher. And I'm sure that he's going to be a winner in this. I don't see either or in this. I become clear about what value drives me, and I become very clear about what is the power from where I will run my leadership. And second level, I create that meaning making in my team to be a follower to me, right? And the third level is the collectively, now that our values match, our meanings match, can we be clear in terms of why are we here, right? The purpose statement. And I'm sure that what has to be delivered will be delivered. would say yes, because none of the members in the team are going to react. They're going to respond. It's reminded of Jack Higgins' book, no, The Eagles Have Landed, right? And you see the man who takes charge. I mean, he's been thrown into the prison. He's not in the prison. He's a criminal, condemned as a criminal, and a sort of a motley crowd that he picks up. But then the charisma that he develops and the meaning making that he creates, every step is an uncertain step for them. Not that they have accomplished at the end, but then they stayed true to the purpose that they wanted to accomplish, even at the cost of their lives.
Thank you very much for featuring in leadership in real life today.
It was also an experience for me to be exploring these questions along with you. Thank you.